Okay. All right, you guys. Our topic today is going to be about what do you want to do when you want to just like sell and move one time? So we're talking about selling and moving once. It's one time you're packing, one time the movers are coming, one time they're unloading the truck, and one time you're there.
Yeah.
So we're talking about that process. A lot of people don't think they can get that process done, that maybe they have to move to a storage building, live with a relative, then maybe that's just not even possible, but there are some options. So this is one of my favorite topics because it's all about options. And I think options for sellers just gives you so much power
Mm-hmm.
and just lets you really create the kind of moving situation that you want.
Yeah, well, and it's such a timely thing right now too. I mean, the easy part of the game right now, the easier rather, is selling. It just is. We have low inventory, even though we have more inventory than we had in the past 2 years. We still have low inventory. Like it is still a seller's market, as long as things are priced well, as long as things are as the process is approached well. And so the hard part is where are you going to go, how are you going to get there? Like that's the hard part of that of this
Mhm.
process. And then how are you going to do that where you aren't having two mortgages, where you aren't having two monthly payments? How are you going to do that? And so this is I mean, we're excited to talk about this because we're having these conversations left and right now with people, because I always talk about this with sellers, but it's like the reality is, I mean, selling your home is what you have to do to get to what you're excited about, which is that next thing. You're excited about where you're going. The selling it is just what has to happen to get you there. And so we want to talk about how to do
Mhm.
that one time, like mom said, and not get you in separate spaces and all that stuff. So yeah, it's really exciting, and it really is a big help to people. Like when we accomplish this, it's super helpful to our clients, and we love doing that. So
Absolutely. So, the challenge, like what Jackson was saying, is, people are trying to figure out how do I either keep from having two mortgages,
hmm
two house payments, and how do I keep from moving in with relatives in between? How am I can be a competitive buyer? How
yeah,
can I be a competitive buyer
yeah,
and still have a house to sell? And what if I need a loan? What if
mm,
I have to get like a loan where I don't put a lot of money down?
yep,
So, how do I get a loan where I'm still competitive because I actually happen to want the house that everybody else wants?
right,
So, I need to be able to compete, right?
right.
So we're going to talk about the options for all that. So, these are all different ways to sell and to move.
Yeah, and there's a
So, of
lot
course,
of them. You got
there is.
there are a lot of options, which the nice part, like mom said, I mean, options are power, y'all, especially when you're a seller. Making sure you have a lot of ways to play the game is super helpful. And so when you have these
Mhm.
options, like there will probably be one or two that work better for you than others, but that doesn't mean that
Right.
all of them don't work. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're going to highlight 9 different options today, and there's a few others, but these are kind of the main ones. So these are the ones we're going to highlight today. So the first one is, of course, it's kind of the traditional one, which is, of course, qualifying for the purchase of the new property without selling first.
Yeah.
And you go ahead and you get a loan, and then you buy the next property, or you pay cash for the next property. And then after you move in and everything's settled and you get everything out of the house that you owned before, and then you list that property and then you sell that. So it's like a one step and then a two step. And of course, with that kind of an option, you're a very competitive buyer. You don't have to sell a house in order to purchase the next one. So you're not doing a contingent offer where it's contingent on you selling, and you're competing just like every other buyer. So it makes it easier for you to get picked if you're in multiple offers. And it also makes it much easier for you to, be able to um, determine some of the terms
Mm,
of the offer, such as the closing
yeah.
date. And, just you can negotiate that a little bit
Yeah.
better because you're a strong buyer.
Yeah. You're stronger than that.
So,
Totally.
yeah, you're stronger than if you have
Yeah.
to sell a house to be able to qualify.
Yeah.
So the only way that you can usually accomplish that is if, first of all, you got to have, of course, good credit. But second of all, you have to have a debt to income ratio that fits for the type of loan that you're getting.
Mm,
So as long as either you are making more money than your current mortgage qualifies you for, then you can, of course, purchase without having to sell.
right.
Also, if you put a big down payment down, or maybe you've got a lot of equity and you don't owe much on your house. So, those are kind of some factors that the lender will take into consideration and determine if you can qualify with the debt to income ratio for buying the next property without having to sell first.
Right.
This is my favorite way to do it if you can do it this way because it's super convenient. You're not in a big rush. You have all the time in the world to get moved into the new place, get the new place painted, floors in, whatever you want to do, get it decorated, get it set up, and then you're not in the house while it's showing. So
Yes.
this is super convenient.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a big deal because otherwise you're having to sacrifice 15 to 20% of your equity to go do that with, an iBuying kind of place like Open Door, stuff like that. And so
Mhm.
the fact that you get to be not around for showings, not having to hide the dogs or whatever, hide the pets, whatever you're having to do that, it's super helpful. But I think, you're skipping over some of the important parts here because, the way we do that, at least with our team, is super, is we want to make sure that you are set up for success. And so, what we make sure we do is we get your pictures taken, we get your house ready to list so that the second you are
Mhm.
out of the option period, basically, that's when we go live. I mean, and that's when we're not having to wait on, okay, now that we have figured out you really do want this home through the option period, now I can go and take the pictures and get everything ready to go. No, like we've done that ready on the front end so that the second you have that new spot, that holdover period is very, very short, very, very short. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, we can with the click of a button, we can have you
right,
ready to go,
right.
and we get you all set
Yeah,
up so that there's not any delay and you're
yeah.
not having to carry 2 mortgages much any longer than what you want to.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. Well, but sometimes like you can't do that because the cash is king for
Right?
sure. Cash is always king. Cash always helps. Cash always puts you in a better driver seat than it would otherwise for sure. But sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes that doesn't make sense. Sometimes you don't have the finances to do that or whatever the situation is. And so you got
Mhm.
to do a contingency offer. And so,
Right.
that's where contingency basically on the sale of another home, which is your current home. Um, and that basically, to explain the psychology of that, you have added something in your offer when you do this that says, hey, other seller of the home that I want, hey, I this thing has to go through before I can buy your home, and so it's contingent on that happening. Now, keep in mind that makes it not look as strong as the other offers that come in without contingencies, right? Because they're just offering the money regardless of whatever happens, right? They're offering the money because of that, So if you're in multiple offer situations, that can be something that holds you back. Isn't always by any means, but it can be for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, because that seller that's selling the property that you want is taking a double risk. So they're not just basing it on the sale of their property, they're also basing accepting your
Yeah,
offer on the sale of your
yeah,
property. So it has to be 2 properties
yeah.
that close.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if you find a home, like, just to put that in perspective for y'all, if you find a home that's been sitting for a while, that probably
Mhm.
won't go into multiple offers, this is a much less bigger deal, because they're just glad to have an offer. Usually, honestly, um, the this is a much bigger deal and becomes a detriment to you when it's multiple offers. Anytime you're in multiple offer
Right.
situations, or you think you will be in multiple offer situations because you're looking in the most desirable areas in in Tarrant County or wherever you're looking, it'll affect that. So just keep that in mind.
Right. Yeah, if the type of house you're looking for is a property that is in a desirable neighborhood where things don't come up for sale very often, and when they do, they go super fast,
Yeah.
and you like things to be completely remodeled
Yeah.
or pristine,
Right.
and you can't really tolerate putting in new carpet or new paint, that kind of stuff, and you really want it to be perfect, that could be a competitive offer.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
yeah, so typically what you do if you decide to go contingent, you either go for the properties that need a little bit of love, like Jackson said, and maybe they've been on the market a little longer, or you also are going to pay more. So you
Right.
may
Right.
increase your offer
Yeah.
if you're competing or you're going for something more
Yeah.
desirable. You just increase your offer, and so you pay more upfront
Yeah.
for that offer for the right to be picked,
Yep.
and that helps balance out the risk of the two sales.
Yep. Yeah. You're just trying to tell the seller, hey, we like this house.
Hmm.
We like
Yeah,
this house,
we
even
really, really, really like this
in
house.
spite
Yeah,
of our current situation. We really still want you to pick our offer. So,
exactly, exactly. And there's some things you can do with a contingent offer to make it super strong. And there's some techniques and some things that we do with our contingent offers that help the increase the risk of it getting picked.
Yeah.
So yeah. So the third option is called a bridge loan. So a bridge loan is basically it is a loan. It's a short-term loan. Typically, it's about 60 days. Can be sometimes 90 days, and that is a loan where you use that loan to purchase your new property. It's not a contingent offer, so it's actually a regular offer on the purchase property. And then what you do is then you put your property for sale as quickly as possible when you know for sure that's going to be something that you close on. And then you keep real short the amount of time of that bridge loan. Bridge loans can only be done on properties where they're paid off or they're mostly paid off, because you're taking a big chunk of that money that's left on the property. The property is kind of the collateral for the loan. So the bridge loan helps you make that bridge between
Right.
selling and buying. And the only problem with that, or the only thing to think about with that, is that you've got to make sure you sell your property within the time that's
Right.
required, or then it gets pretty costly after
Yeah.
that. So, we run comps and we look at the market to determine how quickly we can get your house sold if you're doing a bridge loan, and then we just make sure we price it so that we know for sure you'll get it done within about 30 to 60
Yep.
days.
Yep.
So this is a great option. It's a great product. Lots of lenders do this type of loan, and we've had several clients do this type of loan, and it works great.
Heck yeah.
Hmm.
Well, in the similar vein, you can also do a
Hmm.
home equity loan until it sells. You have to have the right amount of equity, so that means that this probably isn't something that's going to work for somebody who just bought their home. They haven't lived in it long enough to get that a
Right.
large enough amount of equity to make this loan work. But mom, I mean, explain the ins and outs of that, like you did with the bridge loan. I mean, I think you did a great job with
Yeah. So with the home equity loan, you have to have an appraisal of your property, and then the lender will tell you how much percent of your equity you can take out of the property in a loan. So if you are downsizing, this is a great loan for somebody who's downsizing, because you're going to have, like, if you're selling a property that's 900,000
it. Mm,
and you're moving to a property that's like
yeah,
500,000, then you probably have enough equity to actually just do cash
yeah,
for
sure,
your property that you're purchasing. So that is a way to look at doing that. So a home equity loan is another way. And then, of course, what you can do is, as soon as you sell your property, your first home, then you can just pay off that home equity loan.
yeah,
So you can make one big payment and pay that off. You can also just pay it down. You can do a big down on it if you don't want to pay it completely off and carry a little bit of it after you close on the purchase and close on the sale. So there's ways to do that too. So it gives you some other options of how you want to work that.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean that's
Mhm.
a big deal, um, and puts your long loyalty to your home to good use, which is always super
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
the other option that I think is it may be a little more common than at least those last two or three is just a lease back. And so a lease back
Yeah.
it functions very similarly to basically you sell the house, you go ahead and sell it. Like if we're closing in mid-April, like you still close on mid-April, that other person takes ownership of your home in mid-April. However, what they do is you basically become a tenant in that home, and so you negotiate depending on your position and in the market. If you are multiple offers, there's a good chance they'll give you a free lease back or a very cheap
Mhm.
lease back, which is what you want for sure. But sometimes they do, if that's not the case, if that's not the position you're in when you're selling your home, sometimes they won't give you a free lease back. It'll be, a certain fee or whatever you're paying each month, like you would a tenant kind of thing. But the concept is that you get to still have a place to live. You're still living in your home now. It's not your home anymore, right? Keep that in mind. Um, but you're still living in the home that you've been living in. You're only going to have to move once you get that new spot under contract.
Mhm. Yeah, and the way that we look at that is, when somebody's considering this option, is we want to make sure that they look around at the market and we see that there are properties that are coming available that are properties like what they would want to
Mm,
buy.
yeah,
And as long as we feel pretty good about
yeah,
that there's properties coming on that would fit what they want to purchase, then we go ahead and we can work with this option, get them under contract, get them closed and in their lease back. And then we know with pretty good assurance that within 60 to 90 days they'll be able to get under contract and get on a new house.
Yep. Which is a big deal.
So yeah, yeah, because when you close, you get your money,
Yep.
and then you're in the property, and you still have a place to stay.
Right.
So you move once.
Yep. Which is the
So
goal.
that's the goal. One time packing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great if you can get it. So something else that some people do, and you'll probably want to talk to your financial investor, financial consultant. But a lot of people will also they have a lot of money in their 401ks or their
Mm.
IRAs.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll take money out of their 401k and pay cash for a property. And then as soon as their home sells, they'll just put that money back into the
Yeah.
401k. And your financial consultant can tell you how long exactly that you have to get that money back in. Usually it's before the end of the year, but they can give you the time frames on that and let you know for sure when you need to have that house sold. And again, we'll sit down with you, go over time frames, make a real strategic plan for when we need to list it, when it needs to be under contract, what price it needs to be at,
Yep.
and then getting that done. So
Yeah.
we do that quite a bit with a lot of people. We have to make sure that we're right on the money with their time frame.
Yep.
But that's also very doable.
Yeah, totally it is. I mean, it is not unheard of, right? Like all of
Mhm.
these things do happen. It's just a matter of what works best for you, what leverages the money that you have in the ways that you want to leverage it. So
Absolutely.
that's
With a
obviously really good.
401k pullout, you're a cash buyer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you can usually get a great offer and
Yes.
get accepted by
Yeah.
a good property.
I mean, that's a huge game changer when you can be a cash buyer. I mean, it
Mhm.
just makes your offer look so much different. You can beat out higher offers with an all cash offer. I mean, if somebody does a
Yeah.
loan offer at, gosh, I mean, like even just 20K above you, you can sometimes beat that out just because you're a full cash offer. They look
Yeah, and
really good.
yeah, and we have a lot of people that ask, "Why is that?" Well, the main reason that is because cash offers do not require that the buyer go through underwriting. And so there's no risk for the seller that you can't get your money. And then on top of that, there's no appraisal.
Yeah, I was gonna say the appraisal I think is the bigger thing. I mean,
Yeah.
underwriting is important for sure, but the appraisal, like I mean, that's a second, if not the second most time a buyer is gonna get out of the game. Like it's the appraisal.
Mhm.
Like it's gonna be the
Yeah.
option period. It's gonna be the appraisal. So you remove one of those bumps in the road where it's just option period. And sometimes, I mean, in the last market, people were even dropping that. Like it was insane. So
Yeah. 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 So pretty much, as a seller, you go under contract with the cash buyer. The only thing you have to really get through is just the option inspection period.
mhm.
And then after that, there's no underwriting,
Yep,
there's
you're
no
not waiting on anybody.
appraisal.
Mhm.
You're not waiting on
Yep.
anything. You can close fast, you can close slow. It's a done deal.
Yeah.
So that makes you a really great buyer when you do it with cash like that. That's why cash is such a big deal.
Yeah, cash is a huge deal. Now,
Mhm.
my favorite, option, at least to pitch buyers
This
on,
is your new favorite thing, isn't it?
it's just such a like, it's a hack, y'all. I mean, it is just a hack. It doesn't make sense for everybody. It does cost a little more. Like, I'll be upfront about
Mhm.
that, and I'll tell you about the cost here in a second. Well, let me describe what this is first as we're setting this thing up. Um, there's this company called Homeward, y'all, and Homeward I mean, you would think about it very similar to one of those bridge loans. It functions differently, but it's in that style of things. And so what happens is Homeward basically comes in, and if you're a seller, this can work for just a buyer. I mean, you don't have to have a home to sell to use this program, but if you have a home to sell, essentially what happens is that you go out and um, you find the home you want. So Homeward allows you to actually go ahead and put a cash offer. They technically do buy the home. So you end up closing twice. You close once where Homeward closes on the home, and then you close with Homeward as they sell you the home. But they buy the home and basically allow you, and then it's a similar like the lease back option we mentioned. They give you a lease back essentially. They would describe it as the cost of holding the home during
Mm.
the time while you go find the new thing. But like the reason why this is different than what we mentioned before is the fact that it is a loan. It's still a loan, right? So I mean, it still does not require bukus of cash to use because you can get approved like you would do a loan. Um, on top of that, it makes you an all cash buyer, which is a big deal. Um, And then the third thing is it also allows you to be in the home as long as you need to be in the home. They do have a time limit. I think it's like 6 months. I've got some of the details up in front of me, but
Mhm.
there is a time limit on that. Now I mean, it is like mom has said every step of this way. Like anytime there's a time limit going to be involved, we're going to take that into account when it comes to pricing your home, because we
Mhm.
do not want you to even vaguely get close to that time limit. We want you to be very comfortable and very safe when it comes to timing the sale right. And so, basically, y'all, I mean, to do Homeward, it does cost you, if you use their in-house lending stuff, it's like 0.9% convenience fee, is what happens. Otherwise, it ends up being, I'm sorry, it's 1.4%. And then it's 1.9% if you do one of your lender that you like, kind of thing. But that can roll into your mortgage, and so it's not necessarily something that you have to feel on the front end. It can go into your mortgage. But yeah, there's just there's a lot more details and nitty gritty stuff that we can get into with that. I'd love to explain that. If you have any interest in that, heck, even if you're an agent watching this and you've not heard about Homeward, I'd love to just take a second to explain this to you, because it is really a powerful program, that can really set your buyers up for a lot of success in a market that, um,
Mhm.
I mean, especially for my first time home buyers out there, y'all, like you guys are usually, at least in here in Tarrant County, usually you're in that 300, sub 300 price range. And there's a lot of competition in that sub 300 price range, and there's a lot of there are homes on the market, but you're in a competition with a lot of people. And so when you can be an all cash buyer in that price range,
Mhm.
I mean, it
Yeah.
changes the game, y'all. It does, and it's going to change
Yeah.
your experience buying a home. It's going to make it a lot easier. And so
So I guess what you're saying Homeward does is if you don't have a house to sell, it makes you a cash buyer. And if you have a house to sell and you still want to be a cash buyer and move once, this is a way to do it.
yeah, I mean, that's my point. Like
Okay.
the buying side, like there's a selling and buying side. You don't have to do the selling side. Obviously, today we're talking about the selling side. So the selling side basically functions as, hey, seller, you go find your new home. Once you've found your new home, we'll buy that new home for you. I guess technically they buy your home. They hold on to it while for the lease back, and then you get to go and once you've sold the home, basically. So yeah.
Cool. That's a great program.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just it's
So
a
we've got
hack, y'all. Like it feels like a cheat code. I mean, that's what it just feels like. It feels like
mhm.
you have leveled up things, and I mean, obviously you pay for it. I do recognize that. It is a cost, it is a fee, right? But not necessarily one that you have to feel. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And for a lot of people it is a great option to have. So it works real well.
Yeah.
Something else you can do. Some people are wanting to keep their real estate.
Hmm.
So some people want to hold on to the house that they would normally sell. So, and then they want to lease it. So we've got some lenders that they can look at what you would be leasing that property at. And then they take that into consideration and put that towards your debt to income ratio. So it increases your income ratio. And then depending on what kind of house you're buying and what your debt to income ratio is, sometimes you can qualify to keep that property, get it leased, and still be able to qualify for a loan for your new property. So
Yeah.
that's something else that we want to always look at.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, that's
Yeah.
exactly what we did with our first home. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
exact thing
Because
we
it
did.
increases your real estate wealth, right? If you can do
Yeah.
that.
Well, I mean, yeah, I've talked about it before, but I mean, it because I kept that first home, I was able to make the jump into full time real estate this year,
Mm-hmm.
and go from a salary kind of job to a commission based job, and so and not have
Mm-hmm.
to fear the ebbs and flows of the market at this time. So, uh,
Cashed in on that big equity.
yeah, it's a gift, it's a huge it's allowed my family to do some really cool stuff, so we're thankful for that. So this is a great option, y'all. Um, my brother-in-law is doing this like crazy right now as well, and I'm thankful that there are people. If you're in the investment world, you've heard of house hacking. For me, this is like the if you weren't somebody who went and bought a duplex to truly house hack, this is kind of what you do instead. You just keep your first home, you level it up, and you sell it. So, or you lease it rather, not sell it. So, yeah, this is a great
Absolutely.
option for anybody who wants to keep their wealth. Keep in mind, this will require you to have another down payment for your next home. I mean,
Yeah.
you aren't getting the equity from your first home, or
Mm-hmm.
from the current home rather. You're not getting the equity to go put it into your next thing. you are going to have a second income. You're also going to have a couple things. Your lender will talk to you about this. You're going to have some reserves just by state law,
Mhm.
basically, that they'll talk to you about. But like mom mentioned, one of the biggest advantages is you can get approved for things because they do take into account your rental income coming from that property. So
Mhm.
that's a big help as well in that affording that. So
Absolutely. And of course, the number 9 we're gonna talk about is, an investor offer.
yep,
So we actually have access to quite a few different pools of investors. So an investor offer is like Open Door or any kind of investor that calls or knocks on your door. An investor offer is a cash offer. And a lot of times those investors will hold off and they'll give you like you as long as you sell it to me within 90 days or 6 months or whatever, that they'll be okay with that. So that gives you time also to find your other property, and then you can time those where they close together.
yep,
And then it's real easy for you to be almost like a contingent offer, but it's real guaranteed because it's a cash investor offer. So the only thing I would say about that is that if you wanted to go down that route, and it's very convenient because you don't have to show and all that kind of thing. Of course, you're going to take less. It's going to be a lower
yep,
price. So because the investor is buying the property to
yep,
make money on it.
exactly.
So you'll definitely take a lower price, but just make sure you don't just go with the very first investor that gives you any kind of price.
Come on.
So there really is difference in investors,
Yeah,
and different investors, depending on their portfolios and depending on what they're going to do with the property, will offer you different prices. So we can help you with that and help you get in front of a group or a big group of investors. And sometimes you want to go ahead and put the property on the market and expose it to investors that way too. So there's different options with that.
well, and we can even put in the description investor special. And I know some
Mhm.
investors that actually just search that like on Zillow, basically. Like they will search the word investor and it will pull up properties like that. And
Mhm.
so even just adding some words to the description can really change the visibility of a property for people who are looking for it. But yeah, I mean, investors, especially for I mean, like this because you watch those HGTV shows, but like
Mhm.
investors can really be a great option for homes that are in disarray.
Yeah.
If your home is at a point where it is just overwhelming for you to consider trying to get it show ready, this can be a really great option for you, where you still get to leave your home and go to your next thing.
Mhm.
You still get to probably make some money because your home is probably paid off, hopefully, or close to
Mhm.
it. And so uh, it can be a really great option that requires a little bit less stress on the front end. So
Yeah, just expose it to a lot
yes,
of
don't
investors,
take your first
not
offer.
just 1 or 2.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
that's my advice. So
yep,
those are our 9 ways that, you can sell a property and move once
yep.
into your new property.
And just to make a like an asterisk here, y'all, like this isn't I would not recommend doing this on your own, any of these strategies.
Yeah,
Like
they're complicated. It's
because they're
complicated.
timing oriented. Like they're complicated for sure, but they're timing oriented. Like the
Mhm.
littlest thing going wrong or being done slightly differently, especially pricing. We talked about that last episode. Um, it will cause you big problems. It may make you
Mhm.
homeless when you're trying to accomplish this. So don't do that. Just
Right.
like talk to a realtor, use a realtor. Like
That's
these are
right.
strategies that like this is like a don't try this at home. Like this is what I'm trying to say. Like
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
try this at
get a
home.
professional.
Like
Get a professional.
yeah,
Yeah,
you like just
yeah,
to time it right to make sure you don't go homeless. Like you need to make sure you do this. So just keep that in mind. So uh,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, we call these, domino
yeah,
deals. So a lot of the times this is how we refer to them, and we've had as many as maybe 4 or 5 dominoes that need to fall
yes,
all in order, in line, in time, so that all the transactions can happen. So, it takes a lot of management. It's like being a project manager, and we love to do it. So, again, like Jackson says, don't do this at home.
yeah, yeah. Don't try the stone meal.
Don't try this at home.
It's awesome. I love that.
So, yeah. So, you know, as you guys are thinking about selling, you're thinking about options for selling. Give us a shout. We're happy to talk about all these kinds of options with you. Talk about the pros, the cons, the strategic planning of it, how this would go. We want to make sure that you would feel comfortable and just feel really confident about what you would be doing as you're making your purchase and your sale and your move.
Yeah.
So I think like we talked about at the very beginning, the more options you have, then of course the more power you have.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Yeah, and I think like we do this with everything, like whatever you if you're selling, you're buying, whatever your situation looks like. We just want you to also be really clear on the expectations that lie ahead, whether that's you're buying a
Yeah.
home and you just need to know the finances involved in doing such a thing, or you're selling a home and you need to know what dominoes need to fall and when they need to fall. And so just know that like that's a big deal. You want to make sure that you can be very clear on what's coming your way when it's coming your way. So
Mhm.
that's also really
Yeah.
just good to know, and we're glad to help you do that as well. So
Absolutely. We want to help you get where you want to be, get where you want to live, be close to the people that you want to be close to, spend the time the way that you want to spend it, and live the way you want to live.
yeah,
So,
well, I mean, you look at homes like home sales right now. Like I like the last 2 years, I think millennials were like they were the biggest home buyers.
hmm
Right now, I mean, home buyers and sellers even for that matter. Right now, like boomers have taken over because boomers
hmm
are going to their dream places.
yeah,
And so if you're a boomer who's missing your grandkids, if you're a boomer who is looking for that lake place or looking for the whatever you're dreaming about next, that like house on the golf course, like one, you're not alone. Two, like let's talk about how we can get you your next spot because these are things that you'll probably want to think about doing. So
absolutely. We can help.
cool. All right. Well, this has been episode 13. So
13.
fun, y'all. We love doing this every week. I was thinking about this, Mom. We need to start doing some shout outs. I think we're gonna make this a
Okay.
thing if you're cool with this.
Who are we shouting out to
As
today?
we hear, if you're watching this podcast or if you turning in weekly, um, talk to us about it when you see us, and then we're gonna try to remember to shout you out here on the podcast and give you a mention if we hear you from you. I think we're gonna start doing that.
That sounds great. I
All right,
love it.
all right, cool.
All right.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
So we're going to be talking to you this week. So tell us if you saw us.
That's right. Cool, y'all. All right. Well, thank you for joining us again for Home Sweet Homecast. As always, feel free to like, share, subscribe, anything you can do to get us
Yeah.
out there. It helps us help people, and that's what we are about. So, thank y'all for your time this week. We'll catch you again next week.
See you soon.